Welcome, everybody, to Somewhere in Vegas here on our new home, Spreaker.com. I'm Mark the Q. I am your host. Quite a few things to talk about. I mean, we're starting out 2020 here on Spreaker, and it's great to be able to have the show here. A lot of my archives ended up getting erased over at our old place over at Blog Talk. I was able to save a good portion of them as well. So we might be in the coming weeks be putting some of the older interviews up on the website just so we can have them here on our new home Spreaker. And so if you guys were looking at some of the old archives and notice that the content might be gone, Blog Talk started purging a lot of the old stuff. So I was able to save some of the stuff, and some of the stuff I actually did have saved just because we did year-end shows back in the day. So if you guys are looking for some of the old content on Blog Talk, definitely, just be aware of that. And if you guys want a certain episode up, let me know, and I will definitely put that up on the website. Make sure you guys follow us on at SWIV on Twitter, Somewhere in Vegas on Facebook, and at SWIV Podcast on Instagram. We'll be doing some stuff with the Instagram, hopefully coming up in the new year a lot more often. With that in mind, we are going to only have one guest this week, and then we'll start rolling again coming up in the next coming months. So I want to try to start doing more local interviews and some interviews with people that are coming into town more often than not. So just look out for that as well. But my guests at this time have a great movie that's coming over here to the United States called A Serial Killer's Guide to Life. It's a very interesting dark horror comedy. And just to be able, it's just being interesting to say the least. They've shot over 30 locations as well. We got the husband and wife duo of Staten, Cousin Roe, and Poppy Roe on with us right now. How you doing, guys?
Hiya. You're good.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to have do a horror comedy like this, especially, and really just to say that you guys kind of did this on the shoestring as well is amazing. Tell me a little bit about, first of all, how the script and the idea of this movie came about.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we made a short film called This Way Out, which was another jet black comedy, and that was set in a struggling euthanasia centre. Cue laughter. And we made that ourselves in a similar way. And both Poppy Roe and Katie Brayben, who played the two leads in A Serial Killer's Guide to Life, played similar characters, a bit different but similar, I'd say character archetypes in that short. And that went off and went around the world and did very well, and we were very lucky. It was BAFTA longlisted, and HBO in Europe bought it, and it was a success, in short. And so I was looking for ideas, both for my first feature film, but also in particular to be able to get Poppy and Katie back together as a duo, because they have such great chemistry.
I should add, we've known each other for a very long time, me and Katie. We went to drama school together and did some jobs.
Yeah.
Straight after.
Exactly. So that was
a long history.
That was it was great to have that depth of relationship there. And so it was a mixture of looking for a vehicle, as it were, for them, and also discovering this sort of epidemic level of self-help that's being consumed, and realising it's not really properly satirised in that way, and kind of combining the two together into this feature, first feature film.
Now, like I said, I mean, it's interesting just to say the least that so many locations that you guys filmed at and did stuff on the road as well. How was it for you to do kind of this thing where you traveled around and did shot scenes in so many locations?
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy ride, because it was 2 weeks we filmed the whole feature film in as well,
and 28 locations.
Yeah, well, 20. I think it was even more than that. I think it was 30, 33, something like that.
A lot.
So, it was. I wanted to take the energy that's in the script. It's this sort of crazy, twisted road trip buddy movie, and kind of put that into the energy of the shoot, and again put the energy of the shoot back into the film. And so, and as a husband and wife team, it we drew on practical things, like we stayed at Poppy's parents' house as what we used as our accommodation for childcare as well, so to look after our 2.5-year-old, and then built the whole sort of all the other locations around that in a place called East Sussex in England, and it was crazy. There was big highs and big lows. My car broke down pretty much a few hours before shooting, and I ended up travelling the entire time in the character's car, which I picked up for about £200 off the equivalent of Craigslist over here in the UK.
It was a dangerous car.
I really wasn't sure I was going to survive in it, let alone it get me anywhere. And so yeah, it was a really interesting time. That if you hear a noise in the background, that's our 4.5-month-old baby who's making some odd gurgling noises. Who was actually born a few hours before the premiere of the film. I'm sure we'll come to that later. So yeah, it was a crazy ride, and exhilarating too.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that as well. I mean, I've shot we're in the middle of editing a film that I produced, and yeah, we did a lot of it on the Shoestream as well, where and coincidentally it was a road trip. We didn't get to go as many locations as you guys did, but just to be able to have some of those fun little stories about some of the things that, highs and lows as well. I mean, I ended up using my personal car in a lot of the scenes too, so it's like, yeah, I understand that perfectly well, but it's always kind of fun to be able to have those little things where, there's also improvised moments. I know in my film that there was a lot of improvised moment as well. I mean, how's it for you? I mean, obviously, something goes wrong on set, being a producer and director on this film, there's obviously times where you have to improvise a little bit, and sometimes those moments work beautifully, and it's something that you've never really expected. Was there something like that on the film?
Yeah, I think, a lot of the script, I'd say 98% of it is as it was written. Part of that was because we were moving so fast. We were very much working off of 1 or 2 takes on everything, pretty much, that I had to have it pretty well planned in advance. But in doing so, I also knew that there would be little moments, like you say, those little kind of gems that just come out of nowhere between Poppy and Katie, in the behaviour and the body language, and also just the alteration of a small line here, or doing a second take and doing a slightly different joke in that moment. So in a way, that level of planning allowed for just the type of moment, the little gem that you're talking about, And
I want to ask Poppy about playing this character. I mean, it's really interesting to say the least. When somebody plays a killer in a film genre, or somebody that really does have almost a lot of us do have that in the back of our minds. We obviously have a conscience that don't want to act upon some of the feelings that we do, but sometimes sometimes you have those thoughts in the back of your mind, and I'm assuming that was something that you kind of pulled from in terms of your role. Can you tell me a little bit about that, Poppy?
Do you? I was just thinking. I think it's great. It was a great fun character to play. It was everybody loves kind of playing someone who just knows exactly what they want and doesn't apologise and kind of doesn't have that filter of kindness and politeness that we all have in day to day. So it was great fun to play. But I think and I looked at a lot of serial killers, films and actual serial killers to kind of get into the mind of this. But then but weirdly, I discovered that the most useful thing to look at was looking at actual self-help gurus, like life coaches and those online. We all know the big names and a lot of them have this kind of intensity to them, this kind of unwavering confidence that was really, really interesting and really kind of almost psychotic, and it was useful to kind of look at those and kind of take that kind of unblinking focus. That was quite inspirational, looking at those people.
Now, what was? I mean, this is, you said, your second film working with Katie on this one. I mean, what was it? How would you describe kind of working with Katie? And obviously, there's a lot of chemistry between the two of you. I mean, what was it like, kind of working with Katie and going through this process again?
It was great. I love working with Katie, and we it's nice because just having worked together a few times, we did a stage show together as well, and we kind of had a bit of a shorthand. We kind of hit the ground running with her, and sometimes it's difficult with Katie because she's really responsive and emotive, and sometimes actually with this character I struggled a bit to not react to her, to actually be kind of impassive to her when she's so expressive. But yeah, we had a lot of fun, and we kind of really, mucked in together. It was kind of living in each other's pockets for the whole process, and it was lucky we knew each other so well, actually, because we put up with each other very well.
Now, you talked about through the kind of the process where you were self-producing this and you were editing it as well. I mean, how was it editing for you? You said that obviously you were really trying to shoot this movie in 2 weeks. And you weren't doing as many takes as you were, or whatever. I mean, how was the editing process for you guys?
It was most times we got 1 or 2 takes. It was so quick, and luckily we trusted Staten, and he knew when he had it. We trusted when to move on. The editing process was something that we both really wanted to do. We really wanted to kind of mold this story together, and I actually went and kind of retrained to look more into editing, and kind of found myself a mentor in Colin Gowdy, who edited Star Wars Rogue One and Monsters, and he really kindly watched a really, really early rough cut of the film, and then just championed the film and kind of gave some guidance, gave some just amazing advice, and just said, this is really great, and he really loved it, which kind of spurred us on to work on it.
Yeah, I mean, they always say that comedy it tends to be a little bit more harder to do than drama, just because you got to hit those beats and all that as well. And yes. We were talking about earlier the fact that you only had a few takes to do it, but you had to kind of make sure that you got hit those marks as well. I mean, how was it for you to kind of play this character and hit those beats in terms of the comedy?
Do the first day, me and Katie both looked at each other, and we got on set, and we both realised we were quite terrified. And when we started shooting, and Staten was kind of like, yeah, right, brilliant, next, move on. We both kind of looked at each other and went, really? That's it? I can do better. And we got kind of terrified, and then very quickly, like by the end of the first day, we kind of got the pace and went, oh, okay, we've got to make our choices and stick with them, and just play it, for real. And Staten had said previously to us that, like, with a comedy, you almost play it more seriously than a drama. It's kind of, we weren't playing for laughs, and he made sure with all the actors that joined in and everything that no one was kind of playing up. It was kind of very much, all the characters really believed in what they were doing, which is where that kind of dark comic tone comes from. So yeah, but initially it was really tough, but then we started to enjoy the pace and kind of just go along with it.
Now, I mean, the horror genre out here in the United States is really, I think it's really growing by leaps and bounds. We're seeing a lot more international productions, especially out in the Far East. Really do really good horror pictures as well. We don't hear too much from the European side of things as much anymore. How's it been for you guys in terms of the horror genre over there in the UK? And maybe this will hopefully spur a little bit more productions over there to start making their way over here. But tell me a little bit about that.
That's a really interesting question, because I totally hear what you're saying there, and I think it's interesting because when you obviously